PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. Going into round 6 of the candidates, 2 players shared the lead, Yanni Pomnishi and Domaraju Gukesh, both on 3.5. But I'd like to look at the other end of the tournament table and look at the round 6 game between Vidit Gujrathi and Alireza Firouzja. So Firouzja, not having a great tournament, 1.5 points and suffered this terrible loss to Nakamura. Got hustled there. And Vidit also having a bit of a roller coaster ride. He was on 2 points going into this round. So Vidit playing white, e4, and Firouzja playing a Sicilian. He wants a fight. He senses that Vidit might be rocking a bit. So he wants a nice open game, and Vidit goes for the open Sicilian. He wants a good fight as well. Okay, which variation are we going to see? Scheveningen? Dragon? Najdorf? No, we have the classical variation. Now, bishop g5 possible, lots of moves possible, but bishop c4. So this was favoured by Bobby Fischer, among others, and often leads to a really sharp fight, particularly if white goes in for variations with queen e2 and castles queenside. But Firouzja kind of puts the brakes on a bit with queen b6. So this knight is attacked. So what's the big idea? Well, first of all, of course, you'd like to play bishop b3, but that pawn is hanging. So basically the knight has to move. And the idea is that you knock this knight away from the middle, and that means your king is a bit safer with this knight driven to the side. The downside is you're making a move with the queen, and that queen is going to be hit back. But actually bishop b3 wasn't played. Vidit played a slightly unusual move, bishop f4. So putting some pressure here. And the standard move is to play knight e5. And then the bishop drops back. And then you can play a6 or bishop d7. But Firouzja played queen d8. That's very unusual, really unusual. A little bit strange. The queen going back straight away. I mean, normally in this kind of position, it would want to live on c7. So you might expect moves like a6 and then queen back to c7. Queen d2 played. Okay, this looks very logical. In this case, why not castle queenside and just put some pressure here? a6 played. Now quite a subtle move after 16-minute think from Vidit. He played a3. So that's preempting b5, which was played. Bishop dropped back. And here it looks sensible just to play bishop e7. And the idea is that after castles, you can always just shut out the bishop with knight e5. You never have to worry about this. White wouldn't want to give up that bishop without a very good reason. Now, it's just a very double-edged position, but that feels like the way to go, and black is ready to castle. But Firouzja very quickly played bishop b7, and that's a bit casual because after castles, this is already a bit tricky for black. Now, normally, as I mentioned in that previous variation, you would want to play knight e5. Now, this wasn't played, but there's a good reason why it wasn't played. You play knight takes pawn. And after this, you take on here, and, well, it's a complete catastrophe. I mean, black doesn't have to go down that variation to mate, but you get the idea. I mean, this is just tremendous after knight takes b5. You can play knight takes e4, but this is also very, very promising for white. After this, and queen e5. Well, white has sacked a piece, but there's a lot going on in this position. So for example here, knight d4, this is very attractive, threatening knight f5, which looks like checkmate to me. And if f6, okay, this is a fun variation. You can take here and take here and take the queen with a massive advantage in the endgame. Okay, so the long and short of that is that knight e5 gets hit by knight takes b5, and the king is stuck in the middle. So this is a consequence of not playing that bishop out early to e7. So what did Firouzja do? Well, he played queen b6. My goodness, that queen is in and out like a fiddler's elbow, back and forth. So why not bishop d6 here? Well, actually, this is okay for black. This pin is annoying, so white has to play like this, and queen takes f2, followed by rook d8. That'll expel the queen. The queen on f2, in this case, is actually okay. Black is all right there. So it's not a good idea to take here. So Vidit played g4. Well, why not? Black has been messing around with the queen and made this little queenside demonstration, but in the meantime white has castled, all the pieces are in play, and now it's time to start a pawn storm on the king side. Looks like white is better. I mean, it's possible to play something like rook d8, but this still looks like fun for white. White's attack is really progressing fast here. Black's king is still in the middle. Even if it gets to the king side, then f5 is coming very quickly. But I tell you one thing, that would be better than playing queen takes f2. This is just extraordinary. What is Alireza doing? Snatching that pawn. The queen going on a big adventure, but his king is still in the middle. This feels a bit loose with the pawn on b5. I mean, he's on tilt, really playing this move. Okay, time for a slurp of tea. Time for you to have a think. How would you meet this bold pawn grab? Bold or foolish? You ever think? You try and work it out. White play, what are you going to do? Well, generally, if your opponent's king's in the middle, you want to try and open things up. e5 played. It's a very natural pawn break. So let's look at the tactics. If knight takes, I'm afraid that allows a check, and you take the queen. Nice little discovered trick. Okay, what about pawn takes? Well, then the bishop drops back to e3. So this basically just sidelines the queen. Bishop here. This is rather nasty because white just wants to take here and play queen d7 mate. So for example, here, well, you can take on f6 immediately. It's even better to play rook there first, and then bishop takes f6 and queen d7. So very simple moves once the position opens, and white has these mate threats. I mean, there are other variations there, but you get the idea. This is just winning for white. So Firouzja had to do something about the knight. He put it back on d7. And pawn takes pawn. So Vidit has won his pawn back. And that is a huge pawn. It's not going anywhere for the moment. However, it does prevent the bishop from entering into the game. So black is well and truly stuck here. Queen b6. Yeah, before that queen gets hit with a bishop or a rook, it retreats. Bishop e3 hits the queen. Has to go back again. So the queen's tour has ended and it's finished up right where it started. Extraordinary. And black isn't even any material up here. Rook f1. Very logical. f7 looks like a good square to attack. Knight e5. I'm not exactly sure what that's doing. I mean, I suppose it protects f7. But queen d4. I mean, this is such a dominating move. I do like that. It's looking in all directions. And in fact, knight c5 could be quite a nice move. Just undermining that knight. So rook c8 stops that. But queen a7, the queen swoops down. I really like this. That bishop is vulnerable. These pawns are vulnerable. Queen takes a6. This one is dropping. Rook a8. Ooh, okay. So this looks a bit fishy. What's happening with the queen? Well, Vidit has calculated really well. In fact, his queen is not in trouble. You could even make a temporary queen sacrifice with knight takes b5. And after this, this is actually very good for white. But Vidit instead played bishop a7. And it looks weird to self-pin like this. However, it's not possible for black to exploit that. g6, so the king still needs to get out. We're on move 21, and it's still got to make a bit of an effort to get to g8. Bishop takes b5. Okay, Vidit is just cleaning up here. He's now 2 pawns up. Yeah. Check. King b1 takes. And finally, Firouzja castles. So that's some kind of achievement, actually. His king didn't get chopped down in the middle. However, Vidit is 2 pawns up, and that is a mighty pass pawn. Knight c7. And that's a bit of a problem. I mean, this knight, it's a bit of an octopus. I mean, really living with that knight is very difficult for black. I guess the rook could come here, but it really doesn't look very good for black at all. So Firouzja decides, okay, I'll take a pawn, give up that rook. At least the knight has gone. Perhaps it's possible to kind of stir up trouble. But that's a good move. Gets out of the pin. Queen e2. Hits this one. If the knight moves, the bishop is going to come back to d4 on a superb diagonal. So queen takes bishop, queen takes knight. Remember, white is the exchange up. But not only that, has an extra pawn. That's a huge pawn here. Bishop g7. And Vidit's technique was excellent. So just looking to exploit that beautiful pawn on d6. There we go. Endgame is obviously lost. And now the rook joins in the fun. Okay, watch out. That blocks. Queen c5. Yeah, we want an endgame. And now, very calm. Let's just make sure the king is safe before we plough forward again. c3. Betonschach, as they say in Germany. Concrete. Nothing's going to get past this. So, I mean, really, that was black's last hope that he could perhaps use the queen and bishop on the diagonal, but no. I mean, that just shuts everything down. Bishop h6. Okay, simple sack back. And this pass pawn is just too strong. And look, very depressing for black when the king has such cover. Threatening queen f8, knight d4. And that is absolutely decisive. Once the knight reaches c6, attacking the rook, and if it moves away, the pawn ploughs through. Absolutely crushing from Vidit. Really nice technique. But really, I'm absolutely shocked by Alireza Firouzja's play. He lost a bad game against Nakamura in the previous round. But some of his play here, he was just on tilt. I mean, in particular, once he got to this position, it's a difficult position. But queen takes f2. Wow, that is just pushing it way too far. It rather reminds me of the candidates tournament that he played in 2022, where he lost some really bad games and somehow, yeah, he just threw all his toys out the pram. Not good. So can he get his act together? But at the moment, Firouzja is in last place with Abbasov with 1.5 points. So let's just look at the standings, all the standings after 6 rounds. So at the top, we have Jan Nepomniachtchi and Domoraju Gukesh on 4. Nepo and Caruana drew a very tame game. Nepo obviously didn't want to fight on that one. Gukesh drew with Nakamura, quite a steady game. And we had Praggnanandhaa defeated Abbasov. So Praggnanandhaa bounces up. He has 3.5 along with Caruana. And then we've just seen that Vidit won this game. He has 3 points. So it's still really tense at the top. Let me see. If you're not a subscriber, then do click that subscribe button to get notifications for when new videos appear on the channel. And do check out Svetlana Dimchenko's excellent coverage of the women's candidates. Thanks for watching.